Welcome to the Mentor Podcast, where the most highly motivated entrepreneurs come to get their weekly dose of financial stability with host LeGrand, as well as other nationally recognized thought leaders who will teach you how to get, grow, and protect your wealth.
Well, hello, everybody. This is LeGrand on another one of our series of podcasts. The whole purpose of these podcasts is to try to get more income streams coming into your life. And, of course, we're going to be all about real estate, but sometimes we'll insert non-real estate speakers here as well. And sometimes even speakers who have nothing to do with real estate are making money, but just people that I think that you want to hear from. Today we have on the telephone Mr. Mitch Stevens, who has several books, actually. And in fact, 3 books, if I'm not mistaken, all titled My Life in 1,000 Houses with different subheads like Failing Forward to Financial Freedom, 200 plus ways to find bargain properties, and the art of owner financing. Welcome, sir, and how is Mr. Mitch today?
I'm doing great, Ron. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Well, I'm excited as well because I don't get the opportunity to interview very many people that's done as much as you have, so I think we probably ought to start by telling our listeners why we should listen to you and why you're so important. What do you think?
I don't know that I'm important, but I might be able to help you on your journey or shortcut your journey a little bit, only because I took the long way and I know the long way, how the long way is. So now I know how to shortcut it. But
okay,
I do want you to know I have been a fan of yours and been following you since I don't know when you started, but it's been for over 20 years. So I'm flattered that you are interviewing me today. Believe me, I bought about 1,500 houses in my hometown of San Antonio, Texas since 1996. That and $7 will get you a cup of coffee at Starbucks, because there's always someone out there that's done more, in the last month than you did in your whole life. That's not the point of how many. The point is that it's doable and that you can do it, and it'll change your life if you figure out how to do it. Even if you only do 20 houses a year, a lot of people would make more money on 5 or 10 houses a year than they make at their job. So, I'd like to tell everyone I went to La Calle U. I graduated from La Calle U. That's the street in Spanish. I'm actually going to have a college ring made that says La Calle U, and I'm going to hold it up while everyone is holding up their A&M ring and their Texas ring and their Baylor ring. But so I graduated from La Calle U. Half the room looks at me and winks. The other half say, "Oh, I heard that's a great college." It's a very expensive college. I don't recommend it. It will take and take and take from you and never give you anything if you don't want to pick up the lessons yourself. I started out wanting to be a buy and hold guy, ended up migrating over to the owner finance strategy. I happen to live in a state that it works well in. The laws are conducive and so just like Jack Bosch's book, one time cash, temporary cash, and forever cash. I use my one-time flips and wholesales and my temporary cash flow from notes and stuff. I take all that wealth and I buy a forever stream of income in the boat and mini storage industry. So my forever vehicle is not apartments, not houses. I don't like to rent to those people. I like to rent mini storages and boat storages as my forever play. So
they don't move out on you in the middle of the week, a month, huh?
Well, it's taking someone's junk is a whole lot different than moving out an old disabled person or moving a family that has kids in school districts. And it's just a whole different kind of eviction. It's not as emotionally traumatizing. I've done it all, and I've done many. And also I can foreclose on a mini storage unit in exactly 31 days from the day they're late in the state of Texas.
Yeah, you got some good rules in the state of Texas. You better hope I don't move out there.
Yeah, well, why don't you come on out there? I'll just follow you around. I'll just live off your crumbs.
I'll tell you right now, if I did, San Antonio would be a really great place to go. I love that riverfront you got down there. All right, look, you've been at this for, 20 years, did you say?
Yeah, about 22 now, more or less.
But I bet you weren't this smart when you started, were you?
It's debatable whether I'm really smart now. I just avoid pain. It's an instinct. So it's not about being smart. It's just about avoiding pain. No, the school of the streets teaches you a lot, but I always kept continuing my education, following people like you and all different kinds of people, doing all different kinds of things, not necessarily just real estate. There's a lot of things to learn from every business owner.
Yep. That's true. That's true. I have several myself, and I know you do as well. So what do you think the keys were that got you from where you were to where you are today?
Tenacity, for sure. I mean, I just was not going to quit. I had been, I was a late starter. Well, pretty late. I mean, my light bulb really didn't go off till I was about 36. I was always been trying to start businesses. I was always entrepreneurial. I was a very hard worker. I was very honest. But I was muscling my way through, and I was using my back, and it took me a long time. I'm a slow learner. I'll admit it in front of everybody. And then when the light bulb went off, and I started using my head and knowledge instead of my back and my muscles, everything started to change for me.
Are you saying you can either think or labor for those who think?
That's right. You can think or labor for the ones that are thinking.
And oddly enough, I was 35 when I started in real estate as well. And I was doing the exact same thing, making the money with my hands and my back till 35 years old. That's why when I do a class today and I see these 18-year-olds come in there, man, I'm so excited for them. Somebody would have dragged me in there. Well, I probably wouldn't have listened anyway at 18, so it would have made a bit of difference. So
that's true. You gotta get it when you're ready.
Yeah.
One of the things that changed my life was a statement said, "Financial freedom happens when your wants and your needs are exceeded by your passive income." Do you know who said that? Because I don't know who said it.
I do not.
Anyways,
I don't know who said this, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear either.
Well, and I was in that place. I was ready, and the teacher did appear, and this guy said, "Financial freedom happens when your wants and your needs are exceeded by your passive income." Now, I have struck the word passive and put in the word cash flow because I don't believe in passivity whatsoever. But the theory said all this stuff to me, and for the first time I thought, well, the first thing it said to me was, wow, financial freedom. I thought that was words that rich people used, and I'm not rich, but I could hit financial freedom at $3,500 a month. I wouldn't need a job if I had, at the time, 20 years ago, if I had $3,500 a month coming in, I wouldn't need a job. And so all of a sudden, financial freedom was like, I could be financially free. This is a great set of words, and I don't have to be a millionaire. I
got to tell you a story.
Okay.
Recently, I accidentally discovered when I was moving some boxes, the very first book that I had in my very first seminar. I was looking at the notes I took in it, and my big goal at that time was to be able to make $5,000 a month. And, I thought that was my life's dream. If I'd only make $5,000. Right now, $5,000 a month will barely keep my yard mowed. But back then, it was a big deal,
I did the same thing. I found my goals too. I have a book like a journal that and I went back to the beginning of when I started journaling. It was the same thing. My goals were so tiny, but they seemed so difficult to achieve at the time.
Yeah, they're funny now, aren't they?
They're
I
hilarious.
read another one. I couldn't wait for the first year I'd ever make $100,000 in a whole year,
Now it happens
so
monthly.
laughable today. my wife puts more money in the video poker machines at the casino. If We probably ought to stay on track here.
So then the second thing that sentence said to me was that if I it was mathematical, that I become free at this intersection of this point, and I could calculate it. If I could figure out what I was spending, I could figure out where my freedom point was, and all of a sudden this stuff started to become more it was tangible. I could touch it. I could write it on a piece of paper, and I could see exactly where I was, and I could see what I needed to be. And all of a sudden, I didn't need to make $1 million anymore. I didn't need to have $1 million benefactor or a partner with $1 million. I just had to find a measly, stupid $3,500 a month to come into my mailbox in the United States of America, the greatest country in the world. And I thought, if I can't get this done, this little bitty challenge, then I'm just going to, go jump off a pier somewhere.
Or get a job.
Yeah, no, I had a job and I was done with that. Matter of fact,
yeah.
Ron, one of the things that changed my life was, I won't go into the long side of it, but I took having a job off the table because a man who was a POW, captured by Castro, he spent 2.5 years in Castro's hotel where they tortured the living hell out of him every morning. I asked him how he survived, and he said, you know what? If you give the body just enough water and just enough protein, if the mind doesn't go, the body will figure everything out. I was so intrigued with what that man said, and I believed him because he was a POW survivor and who was beaten daily with cables every morning. That's how they woke him up. And I said, wow, this guy's in a prison camp, doesn't know if he's going to live or die. They're starving him. They're holding water from him, giving him just enough. And here I am in the United States. I got all the water I'll ever need. And the thought of starving to death in San Antonio, Texas in 1990 is not even a remote possibility. And so all I got to do is keep my mind from wandering or from failing me, and my body will figure everything out. So you know what I did, Ron? I took having a job off the table, and I kept my mind, by keeping my mind, like he had to keep his mind by not going crazy. I had to keep my mind by not letting me go back to a job.
Yep.
And I said, it's off the table. What is this body going to do to solve the problem? And it was the greatest decision I ever made. Luckily, I was single and I didn't have kids. I'm in level with everybody. I didn't have that pressure. And I would sleep on the floor or I eat rice or did whatever, but my body figured it out. And you know, the coolest thing about being an entrepreneur is when you figure out how to increase your income by $100 a day, you get to keep all $100. And when you get to figure out how to increase your income $500,000 a year, you get to keep the whole $500,000.
Yep.
And so that was probably the biggest decision I ever made.
Call that burning the ships behind you when you get off the island, so you can't get voted off the island. There's no retreat. Die on your sword.
Yeah.
Well, what do you know of a turning point? What did you have a turning point? What was it?
Yeah, I had I got shipped off out into the woods. You know, I was a great athlete in my own mind. I was good enough out there. I had a really good high school career, and then things started to change, and everybody went off to college. I didn't go to college. I wasn't college material. I didn't want to go to college. And then life started stacking up on me, and I woke up one day at about 28. The person I cared about had left because, frankly, I was struggling to make ends meet. I didn't own anything. I didn't own anything. I was behind on a lot of things. I always had good credit, and I always worked to keep things together, but I was just at the bottom of the barrel. And I decided on that day I wasn't going to have a job, and I was going to figure out how to be successful if it killed me. And I was not, and having a job was not the issue. And that was the turning point. I had enough. I like to say my had enough meter was pegged all the way into the red. I had enough, and I don't care what you do to me. I'm not going backwards anymore. I don't care what my friends do. I don't care what people think about me. If I have to sleep on a floor for the rest of the year and eat rice, I don't care what anyone thinks of me. I'm going to figure it out on my own.
So what did you do about it once you made that decision?
I started reading books. I started trying to do what those books told me to do. I tried to hang around people that were very successful. If I had, from Kiyosaki's book, if I had to work for him for free, I did whatever it took. And I got my overhead down so low that if I could just bartend it, if I could just do anything on my own, though. I didn't hire out. I would bartend a private party. I would do anything, but I didn't have a boss. And I found a way to make enough money to hang around the right people. I eventually went to a couple of seminars. I read Robert Allen's Nothing Down book, but it took me a long time to grasp that concept and own it in my heart. I understood it, but it wasn't in my heart.
Yeah. I actually had the same experience in 1982. That was the first seminar I went to. And I came out of there and I only got one thing that I could use out of 2 days, but I used it, and that was my first check was in 3 weeks for $3,000, and that was certainly a life changer check for me. And I got to tell you, I just asked you, what was your turning point? And I'm thinking my turning point was when I came home from my service station, and my wife asked me to buy her a new washing machine, and I said, no way, we're going to fix the old one for the third time because we can't afford a new one. And I lay there all night, telling myself, what an idiot you are, what a worthless human you are, been married 17 years and can't even buy your wife a new washing machine. And I tell you, I got up next morning and I made up my mind, just as you did. I made up my mind, I ain't doing this crap anymore. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew it wasn't that. I knew I was going to make a change, and I snapped.
I didn't know either, but the first thing I did, I didn't have a lot of money, but one of the first things I did is I went and formed a corporation. It was a LLC. No, it was a corporation. I didn't know any better. And I formed a corporation, and I have it today, to this day. It's, 25 years old, maybe older. It's Independence Day Inc. That's what I named my corporation, Independence
No
Day
kidding.
Inc. And they said, well, what are you going to do in this business? I said, I have no idea, but whatever it is, I'm going to be independent.
All right, here we go again. My first corporation was formed shortly after I got out of the event, and I learned the title of it in the event. It was called MIM Properties, Millionaire in the Making Properties. And I don't think I've ever told anybody that, Mitch. So
That's cool.
There you go. That's amazing.
So we both kind of did the same thing. I was feeling the same way. I felt worthless. I thought, I'm not a man at all. I'm just a worthless piece of crap here, and everyone else around me's getting a piece of it. Or I'm recognizing that they're doing it wrong. That they're selling their soul for a corporate job or something, and I'm not doing that. And I just said I wasn't doing that. So
what was your first deal like? What kind of deal was it?
Well, I learned everything the hard way, Ron. I have to get hit in the head with a bat, So I had bought a condo, and I was before I quit having a job, I was a bartender and I was paying everything, and I bought the condo, and then it was a 1-bedroom efficiency, and it was fine. But then another condo came up, and so I bought the 2-bedroom, and I rented out the 1-bedroom, and then I rented out the extra bedroom in my 2-bedroom, and all of a sudden I was living for free. Actually, I was making a couple $100 and living in a nice 2-bedroom condo, and I thought this is really great. And then one day I decided to sell both of the condos just because the market was kind of hot, and I sold it, and I made more money on that day selling my 2 condos, and I actually sold them within a week of each other. So that week, I made more money in that week selling those 2 condos than I made in the last 2 years at my job.
Yeah, I believe that.
And that's when I said to myself, all right, that's when I started honing on real estate. I said, it's either insurance or real estate. That seems like where the money is made, insurance or real estate. And I didn't like insurance because it's too much paper mumbo jumbo. And so I said, I think I'm going to start looking into real estate. And I think that's about the time I found you and went to the first course, and I got a confession to make. I went to your course, and it was like a 3-day Friday, Saturday, Sunday thing, I think. I don't remember where it was. I don't remember the year. But I went to that course, and I remember I left after the first day. I did not go back the next 2 days. I could simply not handle anymore. You had touched on something that I knew that I could do, that I was going to go do, and I didn't want to hear anymore. I didn't want to get convoluted. I didn't want to get sidetracked. I knew this one thing I could do that you had talked about, and I don't remember what it was, but I remember I paid for a 3-day seminar, and I went to 1 day, and I didn't come back. And I went and stayed in the hotel the whole time, already taking action on the one thing I knew I could do from the hotel. And I went back and did it and made, I think I made it in the next 90 days. I again made more money than I'd ever made at a job, and that was the beginning point of my 22-year career of buying a house every other day.
Well, our listeners are going to want to know what that one thing was.
It was a negotiating tactic. I don't remember exactly, but it was on terms, and you had just struck to me what Robert Allen couldn't get through my head, that if I just met enough people, I'd find somebody that would deal on my terms. And my terms was you couldn't have any money right now, and you had to postpone all your payments.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Until I could get some money to give to you. And the first thing I did was I bought a 4-plex. I found a kid who had inherited his daddy's 4-plex, and his daddy passed away. And one of the tenants in the 4-plex was a very big, muscular, scary-looking, mean-looking guy. And he had taken upon himself during the lag time between the death and the inheritance and everything. He started collecting the rent from all the tenants and wasn't giving it to anybody. He was just spending it. He was just taking the rent. He was collecting the rent and spending it. And the kid was afraid of him. And I told the kid I'd take it off his hands, but I couldn't give him any money because the place needed $30,000 in repairs. And I couldn't give him any payments for a year till I got the whole place turned around, but I start making payments in a year. But I would put money into the house, and I went and put the money in my credit. He said yes. He gave me the house with no money. He gave me a year to make my first payment. I got the house fixed a little faster than I thought. I told him it was going to take me a year to get the place turned around. I had it turned around in 45 days. I borrowed the money off my credit cards, the $20,000 to do the repairs. It didn't cost quite as much as I thought it was going to cost to do the repairs.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had the place fixed up, turned around, and making $2,200 a month in 45 days, and I didn't have a payment for a year.
Cool. I like that. Helps cash flow.
Mm-hmm. And then my wife found the credit card.
Okay.
Almost got a divorce.
All right.
I almost got a divorce.
But you made it up to her later, didn't you?
Yeah, well, you know, you talked before about the shut up money. I call it hush money. I had to raise some hush money because my wife was not on board at all. I had to drag her like a caveman. I drug her by the back of the hair, kicking and screaming into entrepreneurialism. And so she was gonna. We were married for about 30 days, and I learned it didn't take me long to learn that you can't get away with anything, not telling your wife. But for the first 30 days of my marriage, I thought I could. So I had to sell the place, and I ended up paying back my credit cards and making $30,000 on the place, and I think that's when she started to leave me alone.
You got her attention, huh?
Mm-hmm.
I got it. Well, I've been married 52 years, and I had a very similar deal on my first house. And I made a mistake of taking her in it. You can you could see the outside from the inside through the wall. Floors were concrete and they were sagging. I remember I paid $7,500 for that house and sold it for $29,900. And I can't remember what I made, but that was the first one. And I converted her from that point on, but I never took her to another house and haven't to this day since, to tell you the truth, except for the ones that I bought to live in. Well, listen, what kind of deals are you doing today, Mitch? What's your business look like today?
Well, I've been doing about 100 houses a year, right at that, just a few more or a few less. But then it's gotten so competitive, you know, there's a guru on every street corner every weekend, and everybody who watches A&E flip that house or something thinks they're a house flipper for at least a year.
And they grossly overpay for the house.
Yeah, and they're running the prices up. So maybe this year I'll be in the 75 house range, but about 35% of them don't fit my model, which I like to buy houses with OPM or other people's money, and then I like to owner finance them on a wraparound mortgage and pick up the down. Well, I make some money when I borrow, not a bunch, but enough to keep my advertising budget. A minimum of $2,000. Yeah, and borrow a little bit more because, you know, if you buy 100 houses a year and it costs you about $2,000 a house to find that house in marketing or whatever you do, if you don't get that $2,000 back or a little bit more every time you borrow the money for a house, I'll leave $200,000 laying around in different houses. So I have to get a little bit more.
Yeah.
Well,
your model's been around forever.
Yeah.
Buy the house cheap, borrow more than you need from a private lender, meaning human, no banks, no loan sharks, and then borrow amortizing loans so that you can sell it with owner financing and not have to worry about short-term payoffs and just sit here and collect the cash flow and become the bank.
Yeah, and you're not responsible, you don't have all those liabilities that the landlord has. I mean, there's some definite trade-offs. You can be a landlord, and then there's the other side of the coin, you can be an owner financier. Landlord, you got the positivity of appreciation and depreciation, but a lot of times that bottom line that they're telling you that you're going to make, you're collecting $1,000, but you're paying out $500 to your lender, so you're clearing $500, got $500 a month positive cash flow. There's 100 liabilities that you just didn't give any credit to. So I got tired of those liabilities, and so I started owner financing houses. I'll tell you like a typical deal that I do. You want like a typical case study? Okay, so I buy a house for $50,000 all in. Let's say this one doesn't really need any repairs to speak of. If it did need repairs, I'd borrow that money too. And then I can get all in for 50, closing costs, everything. And so I borrow 52. And I know that I'm at about 50% LTV because I back into the rents to figure out what my owner finance price is. See, the core belief of my owner finance strategy, or of the owner finance strategy, is that the person paying $1,000 a month rent would rather pay $1,000 to own. Now, it's not 100% across the board, but a large portion of the renters would love to own for what they pay per month. And the separator would be, do you have a down payment? So I take the rents, I subtract the taxes and the insurance, the monthly taxes and the insurance. So let's say if the rents are $1,000 and the taxes are $100 and the insurance is $50, so $1,000 minus $150 is $850. I take that $850, and now I'm dealing in houses at $150,000 or less. So I got a multiplier that works in that range. I take the $850, I multiply it by 115, and it comes out to be $97,750. That number, let's just call it 98,000, because I don't deal in weird numbers. I deal in round numbers. So 98,000 is what this person can afford to finance. That's what 850 will cover if they borrow 98,000 at 10% for 30 years. So I've taken the rents minus the taxes and the insurance, multiplied that number by 115, and come up with the balance that they can afford to borrow if they pay 10% for 30 years. Now, if they can borrow $98,000, what does that make the owner finance price? Well, I add 12% on top. So the owner finance value based on the rents is $110,000, give or take a couple bucks. So I knew going in looking at this house, and it's real easy to get these numbers from Zillow, Trulia, Rentometer, or all three of them. You can park in front of a house and within 10 minutes figure out, based on the rents in the neighborhood, what you could owner finance the house for. So now that I know that I can owner finance it for 110, I'm a real good divider by two, Ron. I can divide by two like nobody's business. So I say, if I get this house for around $55,000 or less, I'm in the money. It's a home run. It's a home run when you get it for half of So now I bought it for $52, put $2,000 in my left hand pocket, tax deferred money, and then I sold it for $110 with let's say $10,000 down, and they owe me $100,000 at 10% for 30 years, around $950 a month. So I got $950 a month principal and interest coming in. I got $350 a month going out. I'm clearing $600, and I'm not a landlord. When that check cashes, that's my $600. I never have to give it to an air conditioner man. I never have to give it to the plumber because it's not my house. I sold it on payments. And so let's do $600. This is what I get on the wholesalers. The wholesalers are wholesaling this deal and making $10,000 or $15,000, and then they're done. I picked up $12,000 in this deal, and then I got $600 a month coming in for 360 months. That's $216,000 that the wholesaler just left on the table in future income.
You sound like me, man. You sound like me. Don't kill the golden goose.
Right. Don't wholesale it. Owner finance it. You'll make just about as much up front from a down payment. And if you make a little bit less, okay, so you could have made $20,000 and I only made 10. If you could have wholesaled for 20, but I took a $10,000 down payment. So you made 10 grand more than me, but you're done. I made 10 and I'm still owed $216,000.
And your golden goose will keep laying golden eggs for years. They will go get their $10,000 checks, pay short-term capital gains on it, give 40% of it to the IRS, and then have to keep going and going and going. And they have no passive income coming in every single month. They got to get up and keep on going to work or their money stops. I get it, man. I get it.
Yeah, but good job.
We do here, I do in Florida what you do out there, except my exit is the lease purchase instead of the owner financing.
Yeah, you got different laws. You have different laws.
That ain't about your law. You can lease option as long as you own it. I don't think that's the issue. It's in my case though, it takes me a lot longer to get the house back if I had to foreclose than it does you.
I'm sure you have some arguments, but in Texas, just for the record, our lease options can only go 6 months or it's deemed a sale.
Well, it might be deemed a sale, but that doesn't mean that it's sold. Let's don't get into that.
Okay.
Let me see. I had some questions for you here. Did you have a personal mentor along the way?
Absolutely. When I was trying to get out of my rent houses because I was getting beat up so bad and I didn't like it, I accidentally did what I should have done a long time ago on purpose. I paid a guy that owned 500 houses in town. He owned 500 houses free and clear. I paid him $10,000 because he said he could solve my problem. He owner financed all those 50% of those houses, and he rented 50% for the tax advantages and the appreciation. So he worked both models all the time. Actually, his model was to rent the house for at least a year, and then he would owner finance it so he could get the capital gains treatment that he wanted.
I've done a lot of those myself, even here in
And
Florida.
I paid the guy $10,000, and within 2 days, he opened me up to the concept that I could sell all these houses and pick up a down payment for each house. I didn't even believe in the concept, but I was able to get, 22 years ago, $3,000 from each person in the house as a down payment. So 25 times 3,000, all of a sudden I had $75,000 in the bank, which was more money than I'd ever seen in one place ever. Mm-hmm. Not even close. And then that $7,500 a month I was supposed to clear as a landlord on those 25 houses, $300 a house was what I was supposed to clear. It started happening as the owner financier, and I was actually collecting every single payment. $7,500 a month was going into my account.
And you weren't fixing any toilets, were you?
No, and that's when I noticed the difference. I built this thing up to $7,500 because I needed $3,500 a month to pay my overhead, and I was trying to get financially free. So and so I knew that things wouldn't go exactly right. So I said I'm going to get $7,500 a month coming in as rental income, and then I'll clear $3,500 and I'll be free. Yeah. Well, I was clearing zero as a landlord, but then when I switched to owner financing, I wasn't just collecting the $3,500. I was collecting the whole $7,500. So like I doubled my goal when I made the shift. I not only hit my goal, but I doubled it.
And now you're at the point to where you didn't have to get up and go to work every day if you didn't feel like it.
No, I didn't, which got really exciting because now every house I bought, I was getting ahead.
I think they call that financial freedom, Mitch. I'm not sure.
Yes, sir. And, some days, there's been days when $150,000, $200,000 comes in positive cash flows per month, So
yep.
It's been a long journey, and I didn't
all
get there
from
overnight.
Assets that you got for free, meaning you borrowed more than you actually paid for them from individuals who also get a good rate of return on their money with a very well secured mortgage attached to the house. They do good. Your sellers get cash. And you get monstrous cash flow and upfront cash, and you get paid on the back end. Here's a question for you. What percentage of those people that you sell to in what I call the modern day money machine that actually cash you out on the back end?
It happens occasionally, but not very many.
Yeah. Because I'm guessing you don't do anything to make it happen. You just set it and forget it, don't you?
Well, I did at first. Like I said, I learned everything the hard way. I did try to get people to qualify for a loan and get me out. Let me tell you what happened. You have to kind of make up your mind. This is my humble opinion, Ron. You kind of have to make up your mind if you want to be an owner financier or you're going for the cash out thing, because there's no in between. If you're going to be an owner financier, then resign yourself that you're just going to collect payments for years and years and years and years and just build up that payment. Yeah, set it, forget it. Because when you try to convert your owner finance house to a mortgage and you go through all this trouble to get their credit up, then the first thing that happens when they want to get a new loan is they call the mortgage company. And the first thing the mortgage company does is send out an inspector, and 25 pages of crap comes up that's wrong with this house, because that's what inspectors do. And then they send out an appraiser, and heaven forbid it's a VA appraiser, because it'll come in even lower. And then the house is $15,000 less than what you sold it for, and all of a sudden you're an asshole. And they move out. It happened to me 3 times in a row. I told you I'm a slow learner. It happened to me 3 times in a row. And I said, hey, this crap doesn't work. You either got to be an owner financier or you got to be a cash out seller, but you can't be in the middle.
Yeah. Not only that, if you do want to cash them out, you literally got to get into the daycare business because you got to do everything for them. Literally,
it's not worth it.
Send them to credit cleaning, send the paperwork in for them because they're too lazy to do it. Force them to go get a loan, babysit them every single day. And honestly, I just got tired of that as well because I had the same thing. I tried to get them cashed out. I figured you got to get to that almighty back-end cash, only to realize, no, over the years I learned the longer you keep that house, the more money it makes you, with no exceptions.
Absolutely. So, I know a guy that had 125 houses in another state, and that was his model. I said, how many? I said, so you have 125 people you're trying to that have a lease option, and you're trying to get them to cash you out. You're working really hard. How many cashed out last year? He said 5. I said, you're wasting your time.
Yeah, again, set it and forget it. And you hit it, man, because inspectors don't kill you, the appraisers will. Plus, we get to charge more when we offer them terms, don't we?
Yeah. So
we set the price. Who's going to appraise it?
Yeah, right. Who cares? So let me tell you how I got to that revelation. A long time ago, I used to create the notes and then sell the notes back when Associates was still alive. And
yeah, I remember Associates. Sure do. Yeah.
And the first 450 deals I did, I bought a house, I owner financed it, and I sold the note. Sometimes all at one closing. And yep. I did it 450 times in a row. And then one day Associates closed. And I laid awake at night. I had 50 houses in my inventory, 50 houses that I had for sale. And my lender didn't require me to make monthly payments. I was flipping these houses so fast that we would just let the interest accrue.
Right.
So I had this 50 houses racking up interest, and Associates had closed, and I laid awake in my bed for a week thinking, my whole business model's ruined now. I can't sell my notes. So I said, well, what's the first thing? I says, well, I got to run out and I got to get these houses loaded so I can stop the interest clock. I got to stop the bleeding. So I got to get the houses loaded up with someone who's paying me. So I went out and I owner financed all the 50 houses in about 60 days. I did it relatively quick because owner financing houses is easy to do.
Not hard to find, are they?
No, they're not hard. And then I had them all owner financed. And I looked up and I had $200,000 in down payments in the bank.
Yeah.
And then I said, okay, well, now what do? I can't sell these notes. And I looked over at my accounts receivable, and every month I was making $25,000. I said, well, what do I need to sell a note for? I got $200,000 in the bank, and I got $25,000 a month coming in. What I need to do is get that $25,000 up to $100,000, and don't worry about selling notes. And that's when I'm sorry I don't learn better, but I have to learn the hard way.
You're a man. It's nothing you can do about it. It's called testosterone. And even if somebody would have told you all this stuff in the beginning, you wouldn't have done it anyway, because it's incumbent in all of us that we got to make the wheel rounder if it's round. And if it's already working, it must be fixed. Right? So I get it. Now today, by the way, I want to know, these houses that you're buying now, are you getting them mostly from for sale by owners or bank owned or both?
For sale by owners, I don't really like to mess with the banks unless it's like a big group, but there's so much competition right now for that stuff that I just prefer to fish in little creeks that people don't realize are there. And they're hard to get to, creeks. The harder it is to get to the creek to fish in, the less people are fishing there. That's where I want to be. So I mastered getting to the difficult places. And how you master that, in my opinion, is you get other people to do the crappy work, and you just show up when they have the trail all blazed, and you grab your pole and you put your hook in the water. So I don't forge the path. I pay someone else to cut the path through the jungle, and then I just go there when the fishing's good.
Yeah, I got it. So the harder they are to find, the less they cost, huh? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, the less competition.
Yeah, and you are correct, boy. In today's market, it's tough buying them through the MLS. God, these folks are paying such stupid prices for these houses. I don't know what seminars they're going to. They're probably watching all those television shows, which have absolutely nothing to do with reality. But I don't know.
Can I tell you a secret? I went to an auction. It's not a secret, but I have a secret weapon. Every now and then, I'll get into a house that's not what I thought, or, it's a difficult house, or it has, just for whatever reason, it has a black cloud over it. I've had perfectly good houses that I had trouble with for some reason. And then I've had perfectly crappy houses that made me a fortune, and I don't understand why, but they did. So every now and then I get into this predicament on a house, or I get a house that I just would like to get rid of. So I went to the auction one day. I don't normally go to auctions because I don't go places where everybody knows. I don't like to go where everybody goes. But there was this one house that was the asset was listed wrong, and I thought maybe I might steal that property at the auction because it was much more house than what was described. And so I was there watching for that house, and I started noticing what houses were going for on all these streets that I knew the houses by heart. And I thought, I can't believe people are paying that much for a house on that street. And then I had this idea, and I took two of my troubled houses, and I foreclosed on myself. And I got more money for those houses at the auction than I ever would have gotten, and I even helped bid it up a little bit. And so I took my hard to sell houses to the auction. I didn't even have to wait. I didn't even have to wait the prescribed time to foreclose on myself because I was never going to argue about the foreclosure because it was me that I was foreclosing on. So I didn't even have to wait the 21 days. I mean, if the auction was tomorrow, I just went and had an auction, you know?
All right. Now, you know you're blowing people's minds now, don't you? Foreclosing on yourself. And stop that. We're not going to get into that on this call, or we'll be on this call another hour.
I got time. You're Ron LeGrand. I'll stay here as long as you want.
I've done the same thing. I foreclose on myself. It's a great way to sell houses. But please, guys, if you're listening and you want to know what the heck we're talking about, you'll have to get that from us at a later date. Because it's true, boy. You take them to auction and you're going to sell them quickly.
Here's my goal, Ron. If people are going to pay too much money for houses, it's my job to put them out of business and get them out of my way as fast as possible. So I just take them down there and let them pay way too much for them.
Well, time will fix it. Pretty soon it'll turn right back around again when the hot market gets over again. Look, I've been at this for 35 years and I've seen 5 different cycles, and some years are up, some years are down, some years buyers, some years sellers market, interest rates up, interest rates down. Frankly, none of that matters. We can always buy houses. We just have to adjust to the marketplace. And I, like you, I'm getting into the world of FSBOs today, and I still buy a few from the MLS, and we do boot camps where we go out and we buy them pre-selected by realtors based on my instructions before we get there. But it is even a year ago. I mean, it's a different market than even a year ago. So. You care to share with us a couple of ways you buy from FSBOs?
Yeah, well, sometimes they're not for sale by owners, but I like to find the owners. Does that count if I just go find the owner?
Well, I don't know what you mean.
Well, I mean, I like to find the owners of abandoned houses, really, because they're harder to get to, right? If it's for sale by owner in Craigslist, then everybody can call them, and I'm negotiating with everybody. And it's a hot market, and there's a bunch of fools out there right now. So I like to go places, like I said, that are more difficult. So I try to find abandoned houses that the owner is not easy to find. Like I said,
houses with no sign in the front yard.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And
you track them down. Yeah.
And when I absolutely can't find the owner, here's my biggest trick. I put a for sale sign in the front yard that says for sale, and the owner calls me every time.
Yeah, I've heard of that slimy trick. I've actually never tried that one, but I might just do that.
Okay, so
we'll get a call.
If you're gonna, I was at a seminar 15 years ago when I added that to your book, and you gave me a ticket to Ruth Chris because I came up with an idea that you hadn't heard before.
It was a great idea. So aren't they pissed at you when they call you?
Well, that's the problem. So I learned to, like you just said, you got to modify, you got to adapt. So they were all pissed off, and I couldn't hardly even talk to them because they were accusing me of trying to steal their house. So now I put the sign up that says for sale with a question mark. And when they call me, I say, no, I wasn't trying to sell your house. I was asking you, is it for sale? I've been trying to find you. Last time I was there were some city officials and a bulldozer out there. I don't know, have they tore the house down yet? Is it still there? Because I'd like to buy it if it's still there, but I think the city's planning on tearing it down.
I love it. I love it. Now, there aren't many people with the guts to do that, don't you?
Well, it's even more complicated. So you got to treat every caller like it's the owner, because a lot of people will be calling you to sincerely inquire about buying the house, but you have to treat every one of them like it's the owner in disguise trying to record you selling his house or something. So you have to say, well, look, I've decided I need to take the sign out of the yard because there's some title issues. And then the owner will usually expose himself to that sign going, damn right, there's a title issue. You don't own it. I said, you must be the owner. I've been trying to find you.
Yeah, I got it. The purpose of any sign is to get the phone to ring, and that's how you handle the call when they call. It makes or breaks the deal. So I got it. Well, listen, I got to stay on track here. We're running out of time. You are now a mentor. You mentor your own students too, don't you?
Yeah, I take about 30 a year. I don't take a lot. I'm just I do it directly. I know that a lot of gurus chastise me for that or whatever, but I'm trying to size up the people that I think have a chance, that have the aptitude, that are in the right position, the right market, with the right attitude. And if all that lines up, then maybe I'll take you as a student, and we'll go and I specialize in the owner finance strategy, but as well as I do, Ron, you got to capitalize on every single lead. So you got to be more than just an owner financier. You got to know how to do subject twos. You got to know how to flip a contract. You got to know how to wholesale. Just because every lead that comes through, you got to profit from.
Yep. Absolutely. We call them transaction engineers. The more you learn, the more you earn. And you can also target your market to attract the kind of deals that you're looking for, just as you talk about with these vacant houses, which I've always told everybody the best deals you're ever going to get on houses are when they're vacant and there's no sign in the front yard, and you'll do what it takes to track down the owners. And of course, most people don't want to work that hard. They'd rather sit on their butts and play on their computer all day and hold out their hand and wait for checks to come in. What's your success rate? Well, I don't know if you could even count this, but do you keep up with your students and track their successes or not?
Yeah, I have a pretty high success rate because I vet them really hard before we come in. Because to me, it's no fun to deal, and I don't deal with complete newbies. You know what I mean? They have to have 20, 30 transactions under their belt. I don't want to teach them how to write a contract. I just want to teach them how to up their game. And since it's me personally doing it, I need to talk to people that can grasp the concept pretty quickly, and we already know they're action takers. You know, I don't want to deal with non-action takers because it's futile. So, you know, I've made a lot of millionaires. My favorite thing to do is to help people figure out what their freedom number is so that they can get financially free and call their boss and tell them that they no longer need their services. And if that's all I do is help them quit their job and help them make an extra $5,000 or $6,000 or $10,000 a month, then that's mission accomplished. And I love helping people quit their job, become independent.
Yep, you like putting people out of work, don't you, Mitch?
I sure do. I like to put them out of work.
I understand. You know, one of my staff members was telling me they was looking at your book reviews on your Amazon, and man, you got somewhere over 200 5-star reviews. So there must be something in your books that folks like. I wish I could tell you I read them, but you know darn well I haven't.
Yeah,
I don't even read my own book.
I know you can't read, Ron, so don't even try to fool me.
Correct. I just talk.
So let me tell you though, the first 10 reviews are me and my family, so disregard those. But the other 190 are legit.
No, they're not. Is there a single book that changed your life or had any major impact on it?
Well, you know, that book was written 2,000 years ago, and everyone else has just been copying it. You just got to follow the laws of success and failure. Outside of the Bible, you know, I read Think and Grow Rich, changed my attitude. It came at a time when I needed to read it because a lot of those people in that book, or most of them, didn't have a formal education, and they became wealthier than all their predecessors. They hired people from Harvard, and I started to realize that maybe my greatest gift was that I didn't go to college because I couldn't get captured by all those velvet chains that so many people.
Well, let me ask you this. I'm going to ask you, you can give one piece of advice, and only one, to brand new investors coming into our world. What would it be?
Get with someone who, personality-wise and morally and integrally, you would like to be, and who is in the position because they're doing what you want to do. And just find the person that you would like to be like, in the occupation that you would like to be successful in. That doesn't mean real estate or anything, just whatever it is. And hire that person or find some way to get next to that person and emulate what they did. I think Tony Robbins said it best, is, find who has what you want and do what they do, and you'll have what they have.
There you go. So follow the fellow who follows his dreams, or the gal. In other words, be very careful to whom you listen. Make sure that the advice you're taking is rendered by someone who's been there and done that, not someone who is just talking about that, because there's a whole bunch of talkers out there. In fact, you guys have a saying out in Texas, tall hat, no cattle, which means all mouth, no do. And, we both know there's plenty of that out there. So just be careful on who you select, and make sure that the person you select is living the lifestyle that you want to live, because if not, they're just a mouthpiece taking the stage or taking a webinar or whatever. So your one piece of advice is do your due diligence and make sure you're taking advice from the proper source, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Get there.
What advice would you give to folks who've been at it a while, or what we might call veterans?
Don't get stuck in your own box, and don't think that you know it all, and you can never stop learning. Ever stop learning. You should always be in some mastermind group or hanging around people that frankly can wipe their backside with your financial statement. There's always someone bigger. There's always someone better. Yep. And just keep improving yourself. And it may not always be financially. Maybe you can get more time. Maybe you can be better to your employees. Maybe you need to be in better physical shape and take care of yourself. But just keep improving on all different kinds of levels and never stop improving. There is no neutral, Ron. I believe firmly. You're either going forward or you're going backwards.
So you're saying when you stop learning, you start dying.
Right, and your world shrinks. And what you think you know or what you did know, it becomes less and less relevant every day because the world keeps progressing.
Our country is full of what I call got the professor syndrome, which means they think they know it all and they don't need to learn anything else, and therefore they stop the learning process. And to their detriment, 20 years goes by and they haven't accomplished much more than they did 20 years ago. And the truth is, they know nothing. They know nothing.
Well, I don't want to be arrogant or sound arrogant, but I made a decision. I went to one semester of college, and I was sitting there listening to this professor. And when I found out that my professor made $69,000 a year, I quit. I walked right out of the class.
Yeah, I don't blame
you. I'm not listening to anybody make $69,000 a year tell me about how to.
Are you saying that broke people can't teach you how to get rich? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know if they can or not, but I think I have a lot better chance if I'm listening to a rich person. I'm sure there's some broke people that could teach you how. I just don't want to take my chance on them.
I don't know how. How can they teach you to do something they've never done? But they sure try, don't they?
They do. There's some instances. I had some people point it out, but they're not. There's some football coaches that never played football, but
they're not trying to teach you how to get rich. They're trying to teach you how to play football, which they very close to. All right, we'll get enough of that. So basically, your advice to veterans is, hey, keep learning. And frankly, I can tell you that you and I are lucky because the fact that we teach means that we've got to keep learning because we learn a lot from our students. So we don't have we can't get the professor syndrome. Personally, I go to 3 or 4 seminars a year that are not, I don't have anything to do with. I go there simply to learn, and I take a good part of my staff with me every time I go, and we always try to be a part of good mastermind groups. So we're no different. We may be at a little higher level in our beginners coming in here, but we know the value of masterminds and of mentoring and tagging on to people who know more about what we're trying to learn than we do. And you made another good point. Don't hang around the people that aren't doing near as well as you do. Hang around the people that are doing a lot better than you do. And you'll find those in any group that you associate yourself with. All right, well, listen, we are running out of time. So how does one get a hold of you and get more information from you? I know we have some links below. I guess we can go there.
Yeah, you can find me at 1000houses.com. That's 1000houses.com. I have a ton of free stuff there. You could probably launch a career off everything I give away free. I figure if you need me as a coach, you'll figure it out. You'll call me. Otherwise, go be prolific on your own. I wish you the best. Also, I have a podcast myself. I actually have interviewed Ron several times on different topics. It's the reinvestorsummit.com, Real Estate Investor Summit on iTunes. But you can get there at reinvestorsummit.com, and there's over, 120 episodes there so far and counting.
Well, very good. I'm glad you could take the time to be with us today because you've been at this podcasting thing a lot longer than I have, but I kind of enjoy talking to successful people like yourself, so appreciate it, sir. And we'll be talking to you soon, and thank to all of you for tuning in. See you soon.
That's all for this edition of the Mentor Podcast. To connect with Ron and learn how you can attain financial freedom, as well as up-to-date strategies to grow and protect your wealth based on today's discussion, go to www.connectwiththementor.com.